we're going to make some buttermilk biscuits. I've got about 20 minutes before work, so let's get down to it. We're going to use some White Lily self-rising flour, and you can use any self-rising flour, but White Lily is just what I had. Self-rising flour is easy to use because it already has everything measured out for you. It's basically flour with baking soda and salt, and then all we're going to need to add to it is a little bit of sugar. So I've got out the buttermilk. You can use light buttermilk if you want. That's what I'm using here. So let's measure out 2 cups of self-rising flour. And if I had a bigger bag, this would be a little bit easier, but it'll be okay. And usually in baking, you have to be super precise, but I found with biscuits and using self-rising flour, it is a lot more forgiving than, say, a really complex pastry. So I'm going to switch it up here so I'm not in your face. Measure out my 2nd cup, dump it into the bowl. And you could sift this if you want to. I've sifted it before. I've not sifted it. It doesn't seem to make a huge difference, so it's up to you. So I'm just going to go ahead and mix this up. There's my 1 tablespoon of sugar, just regular granulated sugar. Now I have 4 tablespoons of really cold butter. I didn't freeze it. It's just really cold. It's not sitting out on the counter. I've cubed it up. And what we're going to do here is we're going to mix this. We're going to cut it into the butter. You can use a food processor if you want. I just didn't feel like digging mine out. But the goal here is to mash up the butter so that it looks like small peas and some coarse sand. And there's really not a wrong way or a more right way to do this. And honestly, the more that you practice and the more feel that you get, you'll understand it a little more. But just rub everything together, and if you keep the butter coated in flour, it's going to make it a little easier to where it doesn't stick on your fingers as badly. But I've also found that you can just rub your hands together. If you get the butter and the flour going, you rub it together, it kind of helps break down a little bit of the butter. But again, you want to work quick. You don't want your butter to melt. You want it to stay cold. Rub it together and keep checking that consistency and see if you get basically what's coarse sand and peas. I know that's a hard thing to imagine, but when you get your hands in the bowl, it'll make a little bit more sense. So keep breaking down that butter, working it in there. And the butter, the thing that it's going to do when it melts and it hits that 500-degree oven, it's going to release steam, which is going to create the fluffiness inside of the biscuits. So you see here, like, it's kind of a coarse sand, some pea size butter pieces. If you see any big pieces, make sure you break those down because you don't want a bunch of big pieces because it just won't spread out evenly into the flour and make a good biscuit. So there we go. Look, coarse sand, pea shapes, we're good to go. All right, so we got this all mixed up. Now we're going to get ready to start making our biscuits. So let's take the cold buttermilk and we're going to measure out 1.5 cups. Oh, shake it up. That's what the instructions say on the box. Got to shake that stuff up. So if you don't have any buttermilk, you can use regular milk with some lemon juice. Set it aside in a bowl and just kind of let it do its thing on the counter. So yeah, 1.5 cups of cold buttermilk. You can also use the powdered buttermilk. I never have, but I've read online people have had pretty good success with that. So take your buttermilk. We're going to pour this in. Make sure you get it all out. And I'm going to use a spoon from this point forward. Get my wooden spoon back here and start mixing it up. And this is going to mix into like really a very shaggy dough. It's not going to look like what you normally would expect biscuit dough to look like. And look, forgive the use of the word here, but it's really going to look kind of like what Bisquick did if you ever made biscuits out of a box. See, it's a really kind of soupy, shaggy batter. It really just doesn't look like it's going to work, but just trust me, it's gonna. Now we're going to get ready to put these biscuits into a cake pan. I've got a 9-inch cake pan that is sprayed with just cooking spray. You can use butter, you can use lard. I find just spraying it with cooking spray works just fine. And this is going to go into a 500-degree preheated oven.
Here's the magic part. Right next to me, I have a sheet pan. You can use a plate, you can use whatever you got. This is a cup of all-purpose flour. I think last time I did use self-rising flour. It didn't make that big of a difference. So whatever flour you have, and it's really just about a cup. You probably won't even need a full cup of it. But now I have a quarter cup scoop, and I'm going to use this to scoop out this batter. We're going to toss it into this flour. I'm going to switch sides here. We're going to toss it into this flour, and then we're going to use that to form our biscuits and then plop them into the pan. And we're going to go around the pan, and then the last one's go in the middle. So yeah, check that out. You just flop your biscuit down into it, and then this is what you're going to use to form your biscuits. And I know they look like they're not going to work, but just, I mean, I've made different recipes. I've made enough to know this is going to work. And see, I'm not even really mushing them. I'm just kind of getting a rough biscuit patty out of there, and boom, I got a biscuit. Just trust me, it's going to work, right? Nope, that was a little bit more than I needed. So I'm going to go all the way around the pan with this, and I shake off a little bit of the excess because I don't think you really need it. And one thing that I just remembered that I should have done, that I need to tell you guys ahead of time, is off to the side you want to have 2 tablespoons of melted butter that we're going to brush on these biscuits to get the tops nice and brown when we're popping them in the oven. And they're going to bake at a preheated oven, preheated to 500 degrees.
All right, I'm back. So we're going to brush on top of all of these biscuits 2 tablespoons of unsalted butter that's been melted. This is what's going to help them brown and just give them that real biscuity brown look that everybody loves. It's going to give it some crunch too. So be careful not to smush down the biscuits, but be sure you coat everything pretty liberally with the melted butter. Because if it doesn't have butter on it, it ain't getting brown. All right, we're going to take our buttered biscuits and we're going to bake them at 500 degrees for 5 minutes, and then we're going to turn it down to 450 to finish for about, I think it's 15 minutes. Yeah, 15 minutes, or as brown as you like.
All right, so it's been about 17 minutes, and I've just pulled these out of the oven. Look at that. Look how, like, they just work. Who knew that you didn't have to make biscuits complicated and flip them all and mush them and roll them and all that stuff? Just use good old easy self-rising flour, barely make them into biscuits, and they become biscuits. So we're going to let these cool in the pan for about 2 minutes. I've got it resting on a little thing here so it can cool on the bottom also. And then we're going to flip them out, and I will show you the bottoms, and we'll break one open and look how awesome they look. So I'll see you guys in a couple minutes. All right, it's been a couple minutes. We've let these cool. We're going to flip them out. And then I'm going to flip out, right? So look at that. I mean, they're so easy and so good to make. And then we'll flip them over. And look at these biscuits, man. I mean, come on. Look how fluffy they are. Right? They've risen. They've done everything they're supposed to do to make a good biscuit. They're nice. They're fluffy. I don't know if you guys can see the steam, but holy moly. That's hot too. So check out my floppy biscuit that I just ruined. But anyway, you can see how beautiful and floppy and fluffy they are. I like big, fluffy biscuits, and I cannot lie. So today, I'm going to put on here, this is some Terrapin Ridge Farms hot pepper bacon jam. I got this for a birthday present. You can get it in a lot of grocery stores now. But this stuff is amazing, and I'm going to make some soon. So there we go. Buttermilk biscuits made in the morning, less than 20 minutes before work. Easy, super reliable, super easy recipe. These are super good. So, look at the ingredients, give them a whirl, you will not be disappointed.